All right, welcome to another episode of Sales After Dark, because money never sleeps. Today's going to be an interesting topic. So if you're watching this on the replay, fast forward it, because I'm going to do about a little 5 minutes of just saying hi to my tribe, and then we'll jump into the content, and then we'll do some questions and answers after the fact. So let me begin that again. If you're watching a replay, do a fast forward. But let me see who is on the line. Let's see what's happening on the chat, man. Herb Wash, you are number one, man. Thank you for being here, Herb. As always, a pleasure to have you. Chris, what's happening? Good evening, right back at you. Inkle John, a new definition of insanity, blaming others for your misfortune and expecting them, not you, to change. It's one of my favorite quotes that I came up with. I think that's a great definition of a new insanity. Sunday fun day for sales. Love it. Mia Knox, West Coast in the house. Thank you for joining us, Mia. And my man from Trinidad Tobago, there he is. Jared, man, always a pleasure, man. Still loving your yellow, man. Vincent Hoban, young man. F. Soriola, morning learning with Antonio, best morning routine ever. Vincent, where you at? Let me know where you're at. Jing Yi from Toronto, man. Here to learn some more. We're going to have a good conversation today. Hello, Victor. Good morning. Right back at you. Let me see. Siva, greetings, man. Pete, what is happening, man? From Cleveland, Ohio. Hi, Victor Gator. And all ready to start my video. Let me see. Carlos Danger says, just read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Great book, by the way. And he says, you don't need to watch this. I don't know. I don't think the guy could sell or talk about sales, but I would read the book. So thank you for being here, Carlos. Appreciate you, man. Good evening, everyone. Ugo, what's happening? We got Chris finalizing the tier. Did I miss something? He doesn't make enough to afford hair plugs. What could we learn from him? I don't know, Carlos. Thank you for being here anyway, man. Anyway, finalizing the tier level of customers with Sales Manager. They like the 80-20 approach. Way to go, man. Like I said, it's great content, man. Let me see. Watching here in the Philippines. Boom. Thank you for joining me. Brian, right back at you. Big hello, man. Luigi Giovanetti, man. Count me in. You are in the game, man. Ansley Pierre, showtime, baby. That's what it is. Hey, Victor, what's happening? Hey, right back at you. Duncan, Joey, Hammett. Hello, Victor and team. Always love it, man. Hello, Victor and team. Let me see, I got Anthony right here. What's going on, Victor? Shout out from Virginia, the big VA. I love it, man. From New York, New York. Welcome, man. Welcome. Let me see. We got TJ. TJ, I haven't seen you for a while, man. Good day, Master VA. Can't believe I missed the whole week last week. See, I knew it. I knew it. So sorry. Busy. You missed some good stuff, TJ. Watch it on the replay. My man, Doug Lehman, in layman's terms. My eyes getting tired, man. I think I need some of these. There it is. In layman's terms, awesome dude, man. Good evening from Colombia. Colombiano. ¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo estás? Hey, Victor, you skipped my name. Xavier. Man, I didn't mean to do that. Carlos Danger, man. Xavier, man. Pleasure to be here, man. I still love you, man, even though you're criticizing me for not importing hair plugs. Why would I want hair plugs, man? Dude, check out this bald natural look, brother. That's a beautiful look. Anyway, Jay Pinder, Dylan, great content. Hello from Minneapolis. Man, I used to live up there. I used to live in the St. Louis Park and Hopkins area. I love Minneapolis. I still have the in-laws up there in Cold Spring, Minnesota. Yeah, for sure, man. Hola, Nasha, right back at you. Sharon says, good morning from Malaysia. Thank you for joining us. Javier Arroyo de la Ciudad de Mexico. Love it, man. Gator, there you are. Las Vegas in the house. We got Michael G. Masita. Hello from Jakarta, Indonesia. Great concept. Value Trinity, B2B. It is, man. I'm telling you, if you can tie increase revenue, reduce costs, expand market share in your presentation to that value, customers will respond, man. It's a great approach, man. We got... hi there from a LinkedIn user. That's anonymous, just hey there. Marshall says, hi, Victor. Trinidad in the house. Looking forward to the topic. Yeah, me too, man. Hello from Japan. My man. Let me see who else has got here. Alexander Romeo. That's a cool name. Alexander Romeo. How's it going, Victor? Excited from Singapore. Great name, man. Mohammed. Learning videos, man. Thank you for being here, Mohammed. Also, hey, King Vic. My New York Islanders are down 3-1 versus Tampa. Can we turn it around against a better team? I don't know, Todd, but, you know, it is what it is, man. Columbia, South Carolina, in the house. Good evening, y'all. Right back at you. All right. So what I want to do, I had a question last week. I think it was last week. Somebody asked me, I think it was CJ, who's usually on here. She's going to miss it. And she asked me about how do you manage, salespeople who are struggling? And I've covered this topic before, but I thought I'd take a different approach and maybe give you a model I came up with this morning. I was kind of going through it, just really thinking about what did I want to talk about. And so it took me like 5 iterations of this, 5 sheets of paper to kind of go through this model. Because again, I think that the science in training sometimes, or trying to learn, is to make it so simple that you can apply it and then at least visualize the model and use it. I can throw a lot of information at you, but if it doesn't stick, it doesn't stick. So what I want to do is I want to give you a model. I came up with this model, and I think I tried to simplify. If I was coaching a salesperson, which I've had to do before in my lifetime, and I had to do it all over again, what model would I use to kind of keep me on track? So I'm going to give you this 5-point model. I think you'll like it, and then we'll talk about it. Also, keep in mind that a lot of the stuff is in the Sales Velocity Academy. Like, I'm going to mention several things here, and then I'm going to reference courses in the Sales Velocity Academy. So at least go to the website, check it out. So let's begin with, let's create the scenario. You got a salesperson, the salesperson's struggling. Let's say you're a manager. And by the way, you could be the salesperson also. You as a salesperson, you basically want to say, how do I get better? What am I doing wrong? You almost want to do an auto-diagnostic, right? Just kind of analyze yourself. Or maybe you're a manager and you're trying to figure out, how do I work with a salesperson who's really struggling, but I know they have the potential? So the first thing we want to do is, let's begin with, and I'm going to draw this model out, and I'm going to draw it like this. Let me just draw it right here. Here's the salesperson, right? We're going to put the salesperson right in the middle. Got to put him right in the middle. And let me blow this marker up just a little bit. And the first thing I would look at, and let's talk about this one in greater detail. Let's look at who they're prospecting and how they're prospecting. Now, when we talk about prospecting, there's 2 components here, right? There's I'll call it the targeting. Like, who are they going after? We've talked about this in the past, right? The actual targeting. Who's your zebra? Who's the client you really want to go after? And I would sit down with the salesperson and say, are we targeting the right people, the right clients, right? But the second part, if you have a CRM, and I think this is where I'm going to pause here for a moment and define some terms. When we talk about prospecting, keep in mind that we use the word prospecting like very liberal. We use the word lead very liberal. But we need to start defining some of these terms. For example, when somebody hands you a contact, say, hey, I think this person will buy for you, might be a good lead for you. That's just a lead. But our job is to qualify that lead. So typically you hear 2 terms. You hear MQL, which stands for Market Qualified Lead or Marketing Qualified Lead, and then you hear a Sales Qualified Lead. What does that mean? A Sales Qualified Lead or Marketing Qualified Lead is the first phase. In other words, you get a lead through the website, right? Maybe these people have been kind of, let's say they looked at your video, they downloaded a white paper, so forth and so on, and all of a sudden, they're asking for more information, and now your inside salespeople might reach out to them through chat, whatever it may be, and engage in a conversation. They're going to try to qualify, see if this is a real buyer. That is still a marketing qualified lead, right? In other words, it's still on the marketing side of the fence. When that inside salesperson, the SDR or the BDR, SDR, Sales Development Rep, BDR, Business Development Rep, basically inside salespeople, once they talk to the client, once they've asked certain questions, they qualify them, they'll now move it over into the outside sales world, and it becomes a sales qualified lead, okay? So what I'm talking about, I want to define those terms because when we talk about prospect, I am talking about it is a sales qualified lead. In other words, they've been qualified already. So let's say you're prospecting, and are your people qualified? So I'm going to assume that it is a sales qualified lead. The second part that you have to have in place, and I would check with my salesperson if they're struggling, I would say, show me, key phrase here, and again, I'm going to start defining terms because I think we use them. I think too often we use terms and we just don't think about it anymore. Like you hear the word playbook, and I could do a whole 1-hour series just on a playbook. Because when you're working with a CRM, whether it's Pipedrive, Sales Drive, HubSpot, you're going to develop playbooks. Now, it's almost like football, right? You're going to run a play, right? And so maybe, again, you're going to call, you're going to send an email, you're going to send a voicemail, or you're going to do a certain sequence. That's what they mean by a playbook. And different customers, you can run different plays. So one of the things I would start doing is I'm working with a salesperson that's struggling. I'm first going to ask, let me look at who you're targeting and make sure we're targeting the right people, that they're qualified leads, right? And then I'm going to say, let me see what your playbooks look like. What type of emails are you sending out? Voicemails are you leaving in terms of scripts? And walk through the whole playbook. And I would begin there. I would begin my diagnostic there because this really is the front end. So simply put, if your salesperson is struggling, I would ask them, who are you targeting and how are you targeting them? Who are you targeting and how are you targeting when it comes to the actual playbook? And let's say that you're good with that. Then I would move to the next piece, right? So I would move to the next piece. And the second problem a lot of salespeople have is that sometimes they struggle with the product. Let me zoom in on that so you can see it. Sometimes they'll struggle with the product. And the big question I always ask is, do they really have the right IQ? By IQ is, do they really understand the product? And then this is where you as a manager can test them, right? And if you're a salesperson, you're struggling and you don't really understand your product, what I used to do is, as an engineer, as an ex-engineer, I would go talk to engineering. And I would tell engineering, I said, okay, what are the toughest questions that they're going to ask me? What are the toughest questions that clients are going to throw at me that are kind of gotcha questions? And then I would kind of do a role play with the engineers. Believe it or not, engineers and product managers are great people to go to when you really want to learn your product. So stepping back, if I'm a sales manager, I'm going to test the knowledge of my salespeople. Now, this is interesting because I know too many managers who don't really know their product. They're managing salespeople, but they don't understand their own product. And I think it's a mistake when a product manager or sales manager rather doesn't truly understand what they're actually selling. And so I'm going to assume that the sales manager knows the product. And if they do, then I'm going to actually work with my salesperson. And if the salesperson doesn't have the right answers, either I as a sales manager will work with them, or I'm going to tell them to go work with an engineer, a software engineer, product management, whatever it may be, even marketing, just to figure out what they need to say, what they need to know when a client asks the tough questions. So stepping back, if I got the prospecting in line, I'm confident that they're targeting the right people and they got the right playbooks, the right cadences, the right timings, then I'm going to say, let me test the product knowledge. Boom, got the product knowledge, right? Then the third step would be, and this is the big one. This is where I think most of the deals are lost, and that is the pitch. The pitch, and that is basically, if you think about it, how are they presenting the product? Because this right here is content. This right here is delivery. Big difference. Content versus delivery. You can have the greatest content, but if you don't have the right delivery, it doesn't matter. You can have a great delivery, but if you have great content, it doesn't matter either. So you got to make sure they know how to actually pitch the product. So one of the things I would constantly do with my sales team is I would make them get up and sell me the product. By the way, I'm not talking about like sell me this pen, not like that. I would say, let me see your first 15 minutes of your presentation and how you're actually presenting. And then what I would do as a sales manager is I would work with them on the pitch and I would find out, are they being persuasive enough? And I think that's the word I would use. Are they being persuasive enough in their actual presentation? And again, you can tell very quickly who can be persuasive and who's not, who has the right messaging. And I'm out of curiosity, and we'll go to the chat in a bit, but I want to ask you, how often were you told to practice your pitch in front of your manager? Has that ever happened to you? If it didn't, I'm shocked. It should happen because this is one of the things we have to practice. We always talk about never practice on your client. Practice what? Right? In your home or in your office with your manager or with your sales team. So when you get on the phone or when you get on live chat or when you get on a live video call like this, it's automatic you know your product. So now let's assume that you've walked through this diagnostic. Now, by the way, going this way, I'm suggesting you start out with, do they understand who they're selling to? Do they understand what they're selling? And can they present, can they position, can they persuade my customers based on the product pitch they're doing? Can they actually be persuasive? And if that's a thumbs up, then the last one becomes very easy. And that's the pricing piece. That's the pricing piece. And the pricing piece is really about negotiation, isn't it? It's just about how do you position the pricing. And so there's several courses in the Sales Velocity Academy. You should check out there's a program called, in the Sales Velocity Academy, it's called Pricing Strategies. There's one on presentation and positioning, which is really a good one right here. Because this right here, look, here's the reality. If you're talking to the right client, right? If you're talking to the right client, you understand the product and you got the right pitch, pricing isn't that difficult. It's when you're talking to the wrong clients. See, when your prospect is not aligned with who you're targeting, you're going to get more pushback on price. Let me be specific here. If you're targeting somebody who you know. Let's say you sell enterprise systems and you know that your ideal client profile, customer company profile is, let's say 50 to 100 users and above. Let's say you're selling a SaaS product, right? You got to have at least 100 users and above in order for this to be actually cost effective. You know that if you start selling to anything below that, price is going to become an issue. So this is why knowing who you're prospecting to becomes very important. So these are 1, 2, 3, 4, and number 5. So we got that right, that right, that right. Let's say we got the pricing right. They know how to be persuasive. They know how to negotiate. Then right here, I always call this the PMA, which is the positive mental attitude, right? Which is basically, how do you do it? What's the mindset? I mean, what is the mindset of a real buyer, of a real seller? Because typically that's where they undermine themselves. Typically, a lot of salespeople may not believe in their product or believe in the value they deliver. And that becomes a problem. So keep this in mind. These are the 5 things. If I can get them to target the right people, if I can get them to know what their product knowledge is, right? Understand their product to the point that they can just repeat it, say it without thinking about it, be able to deliver the content. I mean, really deliver it persuasively. And then pricing becomes that much easier. But in the middle right here is, again, the big positive mental attitude. In other words, what's their mindset? But even if you have these 5 going, the question then becomes, let me move this over here, is what are 3 things you can do on a daily basis or a weekly basis to really work with your salespeople? So let's go to number 1. The first thing is I would take, number 1, if I'm coaching, I would take the top 5 to 10 deals. And let's just start there. The 5 to top 10 deals. If you take the 5 to 10 deals, taking those deals and analyzing, look at your dashboard. What are your best deals? And if they're looking at their best deals and you're working with them on their best deals, every week you get together and you review those deals with your salesperson. And what you're looking for is advancement. Are they moving it forward? Maybe it's a long sales cycle, so it's not necessarily closing, but it's moving it forward. And here's what you're looking for. You got to track behavior and activity. Are they making the right calls? That's why the playbook is important. Are they talking to the right people? Are they contacting, if it's a B2B sales cycle, are they contacting more than one decision maker? How many points of contact do they have within one company? So that would be the first thing I would look at. But again, I would narrow it down to, again, sometimes they're carrying 50 to 70 clients in their portfolio, potential prospects. I would zoom on 5 to 10, just a sample, especially the good ones, 5 to 10 companies that I want that salesperson to focus in on. And those are the 5 to 10 that I would coach them with or work with them every week. Number 2. Then number 2 would be every week, this is an easy one, you monitor that, right? You do a weekly review, and then this is the big part. And the weekly review has to be basically very consistent. Don't do it on a monthly basis, because if you do it monthly, too often a lot of stuff gets lost or a lot of things happen that don't get talked about by the time you reach the end of the month. The third one, I think, is the last one, which is the most important one, is how do you give the feedback, right? How do you give your salespeople that feedback? Because, it's always a balance, isn't it? Because you want to correct them, but at the same time, you want to correct them, but you don't want to make them feel bad because you want them to stay what? Positive. So that, I think, is the hat trick for a lot of managers. How do you just, in other words, say you got to start doing these things, pushing them, but also encouraging them at the same time. So if you look at this, if we can do these 5 things, look at these 5 things. It's almost like getting your car checked. When you take your car and you take it in and you get it checked, they hook it up to a machine and they run the diagnostics. These are the diagnostics, right? And these are basically the rules that you're going to use in order to coach your salesperson. And that is what I had tonight. Tight content. Let me know what you think. I'll take some questions and some answers right now. We'll have a chat. Let me know what you think of that. Do you have a problem with salespeople? And if you did, love to hear about it. Let me zoom back. Let me pull back up because you guys had a lot of comments coming my way. Let me see. Columbia's good. We got unknown user joined us. Hussein said, hey, man. Hello, Double P. You guys are saying hi. TJ's back. Gator, gotcha. I'll skip the hellos to each other. Kerman, well said. Let me see. Aspire. Who's an aspiring? Nice lesson. Aspiring salesperson here. It'll help you on the management side as well. Wonderful. A lot of you guys know what I'm talking about. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. Also, pretty pitch. Let me see. Better pitch can make a lot of difference in selling. I love it, man. I love it. And then we got viewing Cebu City, Philippines, man. Thank you for being here, man. Let me see. Wawa City, me too. Carlos Danger, I don't know, man. Dude, you got nothing better to do? You can hang out, but man, it's sad that you have to do that, man. Anyway, Chris, glad to see you, man. You're awesome, man. You're awesome, man. Great learning, Master VA. Thank you so much. When you're looking at coaching, what's been your toughest challenge? That's what I want to hear from you. When you've had to coach salespeople, if you're a manager and you're listening to this and you've had to coach somebody, tell me what's been the toughest thing in coaching an actual person? In other words, when you're coaching a salesperson, how do you do it, man? What are some tips and tricks that you use? Because I want to learn from you. What have you done in the past to make sure that they stay on target, in line? That's what I want to hear from you. Let's see what you got. Great info. Thank you very much, Brian. Let me see. I got you right here, Brian. Great information. I enjoyed the way dealing with haters today and your last videos. That's all right, man. They're all good, man. They're all good. Is there a metric to measure how to be persuasive? Siva, that's a good question, Siva. That's a tough one, man, because it's one of those things where it's just hard because, one could argue that you can measure by close rate, but you've got to be careful because, when people use the word persuasive, it could also mean manipulation. So you got to be careful. I think one way to measure persuasion or influence is that when you're talking to somebody and you feel that they're following you, like they feel that they're tracking with you, like you're talking about this, they're tracking with you. It's like when I presented just now the information I just gave you, I'm hoping that you're tracking with me. And that's one way. And the only way to know that is to visually look at them and see if they're with you. So keep that in mind. I mean, that's a tough question. It's a really good question, but it's a tough one to answer. I have a problem with sales managers that do not do any of these things, so I end up doing them myself. Can I do 1 and 2, but hard to do number 3 by myself? I end up seeking out other salespeople for feedback. Yeah, it is. Like I said, one of the best sales managers I had, Jose Santana, who, was my mentor, he would do ride-alongs with me. In his case, since we were flying down to Latin America, they were actually fly-alongs, right? And so he would let me present, and then he would watch, and he would never, and this is what I loved about the guy, he would never jump in to try to save me, right? And unless it was something like dire, but he rarely did it. But he would let me kind of go for it. And then right after the call, we'd have a debrief. We'd have a conversation about it. And he was, he knew how to do that balancing thing, slap you in the head, but kind of said, don't do that again. But at the same time, encourage you to be a better salesperson. And those are the best sales managers. It's not the sales managers that are nice to you. It's the ones that really care that really care about your learning. I tell the story that, Brian, when I was in Toastmasters, there was this one guy, his name was Hale Meserl, and every time I gave a speech, I remember I would get 2 nice reviews, but then there came Hale, and he would just cut into me. And I hated the guy at the beginning, but I realized that the reason he was hard on me is because he really cared about my growth. He didn't want to make me feel good. He tried to, but he really wanted me to just learn how to be a better speaker, and for that, I'm eternally grateful, man. Ansley Pierre, yes, what books can you recommend to a new salesperson or saleswoman, motivation-wise? The last one I read that I thought was really good, this is going to shock you guys. Because I read the book and even I was taken aback about how informational and motivational it was. And that was Grant Cardone's Sell or Be Sold. Yeah, Sell or Be Sold. I think it's better than the 10X book. I like the 10X book. But the Sell or Be Sold had that combination of sales strategy, tactics, Ansley, and also it's kind of inspirational. You're fired up. So I would recommend that one. It's a great book, man. I was caught off guard. Pete brought up the sandwich technique. That's kind of what he used. He would tell me something nice, give me the bad news, and tell me something more nice at the end to make me feel good. And that's the way he delivered it. Well done, man. Well done on that one. Judy, I shrunk this one here. Let me pull that back up. I think I can do it. Hold on. Oh, man, it's not cooperating with me. All right, I'm going to try to do it. If I can't do it, I'll just have to scan it. There it is. Learn from a lot. You're awesome, man. Jack Deep, thank you very much. Sharman, cool name, man. Javier, thank you very much. Like I said, I could make this a long... By the way, I hope you guys are okay with me trying to compress what could be a 30 to 40-minute workshop into like 10 to 15 minutes. But I think you guys, I think I know you guys well enough where you guys are smart enough where you can figure some of this stuff out. I'm just laying out models and letting you guys fill in the blanks, and I think you guys are good at doing that. Elkin, I will need to view the replay of the session, but nice seeing you, Vic. Same here, Elkin. Thank you for stopping by, man. Chris Gloss again, practice and role plays to improve behavior. Isn't that true? I mean, it's amazing to me, and I've talked about this before on live streams, how many people simply don't want to role play. And I think that's an issue. It feels awkward. You know what I mean? And again, one of the tricks I learned about role playing is that instead of facing each other, just go back to back. For some reason, I don't know why, when you're not looking at the other person, you could role play more naturally. So that's a small tip that I usually give people. So try that. Positive, corrective, positive. There you go, man. There it is. CF, there you are. Victor, I learned a key sales strategy from Mike, a street hustler. Oh, this is going to be good. He believed his story. He would add new elements to his pitch. The pitch, he needed money because of XYZ. Okay, you got to give me some more. Give me some more, CF, on that one. Created an entangled checklist for them to follow in each call to speak to the full breadth of our business. Oh, you created a full checklist, an entangled checklist for them to follow in each call to speak to the full breadth of our business. That's it, Mac. And the ability, Mac, to get them to giving somebody a full list is one thing. But the best salespeople, what I've noticed they do, tell me if you agree, Mac, is that they learn the list, they learn it, they absorb it, they push it through them so it sounds natural and it don't sound like they're interrogating a client. That's what best salespeople do. They internalize these questions, and when they push it through them, it sounds natural. And again, we've all been on those calls where it sounds like just an interview, like, whipping you with a wet noodle, man. How to not lose customers if they don't like price. Man, 1407, that's a big question. It's a very general question. Again, what we talked about earlier, if you're targeting the right clients, you pretty much know what the price points are going to be, right? You're going to know. It's usually when you're targeting the wrong people that typically can't afford your product or services. And we try to force, sometimes somebody's price point's down here, you're up here, and it's really hard to pull them up. And the best you can do is, again, retarget your efforts. So it might be more of a prospecting marketing issue. So I'll leave it at that. Like I said, that's a big one. Find the why and how they buy. Beat nuts. I don't think I've seen you in a while, man. Thank you for joining me. Inkle John, what do you got, man? What is the difference between coaching and mentoring? In coaching, do you ask a lot of questions and make them think of the answers? I mean, it's by the way, it's a great question. I think the mentoring, I think most people have to be like coaches. I use always the sports analogy, right? The coach is somebody who's going to basically guide you. When they see you doing something, they say, look, do it like this, hold the bat like this, hold the club like this, do this. And it's more the mechanics of what you might be doing wrong. To me, a mentor is more almost like, take that, but more specifically, a mentor is almost like more of a therapist for you. And somebody who gives you guidance and is very close to you personally. To me, a mentor is somebody that's very close to you that you can call anytime. Where in business, your manager is your coach. It's more, I don't want to say it's impersonal, but it is because, it's hard to have a relationship with 150 salespeople. That's a great question, by the way. It's a really good question. By the way, what would you guys say is the difference between mentoring and coaching? I want to hear your responses because that's a great question, Inkle. That's a great question. Consistency, persuasive, and how dedication to close it. Yep, I would push them on them, man. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Victor, please, which tool is most effective in coaching sales? Person, phone call, or email? I think, if I had to put by hierarchy, I would use that hierarchy right there. I would say person, phone call, probably video call second, phone call third, and maybe email, and then text, right? All the way down that. And I think in person, there's something about, I talked about this before, when you're in person, people can see what you're trying to say, right? They see it's like, if I'm coaching you, Ugo, I go like, Ugo, here's what we need to do. And it comes across, you can be more sympathetic, you can be more in the moment with the person. So for me, in person is the best. Then video like this would be second best. But the best coaching occurs as soon as you've done something and somebody's right there watching you. And then when you're done with the presentation, you're wrapping up, and afterwards they give you the feedback. So the immediate feedback right there is even better. So it's not so much which is better. I also think timing has everything to do with it. But also let's add timing. Again, type of feedback, let's say in person, right? Timing. In other words, don't wait 2 or 3 days to give me the feedback. It's not going to help me. So the sooner I get the feedback, the better. But also the type of feedback. And I think this is where a lot of coaches get it wrong. is that when you give somebody feedback, some people, like if you did a presentation, I say, Ugo, that was a great presentation, well done. That's good feedback, but it's not the best. The best feedback would be something like this. Ugo, I loved your presentation, and here are the 3 things that I think you really excel at because I saw you do it. And then you start pointing them out. And when you can be very specific, people know you're not patronizing them, right? They know that you were paying attention. So I think the more specific you could be in your feedback, the more grateful the person will be. And by the way, this goes both ways. Here are the things you did right, very specifically, but here's why I think you need to kind of work on this, this, and this. And then people go, okay, I get it. So telling people, hey, that was a great job. I hate hearing that. Victor, loved your presentation. You know, to which I always, once in a while I would say, if I have time, I go, what did you love about it? Because no, I just loved it. I loved the energy. And I go, that doesn't make me feel good. But if you said, you know when you told that story, you know when you showed that example, you know when you talked about this, you know when you asked that guy, then you're like, oh, that's what they like. So keep that in mind. It's also the what. Great salespeople will create the structure and discipline key they know they need, even if their company doesn't provide it. Yeah, there's going to be times, many times I should say, where your company's not going to give you the support you want. But the beautiful thing about this time we live in is that we have so much information online. We got great stuff going on at night like this to help you with the coaching. But I always say, and I think Pete would agree with me, is that we are a walking profit center. We need to be responsible for our own training and our own development. If the company has it, great. If they want to give it to us, great. But if they don't, let us take responsibility because it is our job to grow, not theirs. And I think that's a good point. Yes, we salespeople need the tough love. You got to get the tough love. Rod Vidre. Oh, Matt, it's always a great question coming from Rod. Here it comes. Hey, Victor, how about the Wolf of Wall Street speech on the brand new Porsche? What do you think about the method of inserting kind of a fear in salespeople, meaning if you fail to hit your quota, you'll fail in life? I don't know about the brand new Porsche thing. I don't know what that is. I like Jordan Belfort. No, I'm not talking about the movie Jordan Belfort. I'm talking about like Jordan Belfort because I think he's his straight line method. There's some validity in his straight line method. A lot of people other sales trainer like poo-poo that method. I'm like, no, there's something there to the method. When he describes the straight line method and providing guides and using that to guide conversations, I think it's brilliant in its simplicity. It's not earth-shattering. It's just brilliant in its simplicity and execution. The whole fear thing, here's where I think we would part ways in terms of philosophy. The fear thing you really could have used that like 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago, right? But the fact is, we live in a world where we have options. The only time I see the fear strategy work is when you got people in a room captured, right? And, it's like, well, I hate to pick on timeshare people, but timeshare people, they lock you in a room with no windows, right? On purpose. Or you go to a big event and they put you in a big room, big arena, whatever it is, no windows, again, because they don't want you to see the outside reality. Something reminds you. They want to keep you in the experience, and then they pressure people into buying. And again, it's a method. It works for a lot of people, and a lot of people make a lot of money. God bless them. Go forward, prosper. But I think there's a lot of people who have buyer's remorse after they leave there, and like a couple of days later, they're like, why did I buy that? And I don't know, if you're that type of salesperson, you're okay with that, you're okay with people having buyer's remorse, then, yeah, that's you. I think today people have options, and, we can buy stuff anywhere. We don't have to buy from you. So there's like no scarcity going on here, right? There's no scarcity. So how are you going to scare me? And so when I think about stuff like that, Rod, I'm like, fear works if it's done correctly, but I don't see fear like hey, you're going to fail. If you fail at this, you're going to fail in life. Really? I think people who buy into that, here's where I'm going to get in real trouble, but I'm just being honest, are low information thinkers. There's high information thinkers and there's low information thinkers. Low information thinkers are not stupid people. Is that they just low information and then they're highly emotional. Low information, highly emotional, right? Where there's high-level thinkers who don't get emotional and make rational decisions. And one could argue that the best place to be is somewhere in the middle, but I see this working on low information thinkers, man. So tell me if I'm in trouble on that one. Brian agrees with me. It's a great book. I'll check it out. It is a good book. I mean, did you read it, Ansley? Did you read it, though? That's what I want to know. Did you read it? I know you have it, but did you read it, though? That'd be a good, let me see. Morning from Malaysia. Ada, missed you. Thank you for being here. Tarun, does PMA mean why you are doing what you do, but as manager, how do you identify other person why? When most people struggle to identify this, what activities organizations can do for this? So a positive mental attitude is something that obviously you can measure your own, but I think it's something you have to observe in people. And you observe it, Tarun, in their language. You really observe positive mental attitude in people's language. When people talk to me and they just go negative, right? And I'm not talking about personal conversation. I'm just saying in business, when I see somebody just always taking the but, well, I mean, you could do that. I was on a call, and I actually lost the deal, by the way, so I lost this one, but I knew I was going to lose it. Here's why. I got on the call. We did the first round of calls. Perfect example, Tarun. I'm going to answer your question. First round of calls, it was with the VP and some other high-level exec. VP was like, dude, let's bring you in. And then I get a call or email saying, hey, we want you to meet with our next level team. And they brought in their second string team, right? And there was this guy in marketing that no matter what I said, he goes, yeah, Victor, I hear what you're saying. And then he would do this, he would do this, he would do this. He'd go, now, I may not know everything, or maybe I'm not understanding. Now, when people do that to me, I'm going, here it comes. I can hear the gun cocky, like they're cocking the gun. Because when somebody says, you know, I could be wrong, you know, and he was doing this whole, well, you know, I like what you're saying. You know, I can see how we can possibly include that content, but, and at that point, that's a person who's so in their head that they're always looking for what's wrong with something and not right with something. So I wasn't surprised when they came back. In fact, I didn't even follow up. And in 2 weeks, they came back and says, yeah, we're going in another direction. To which I was like, I didn't even put you in my calendar because I knew that one was a done deal. So I think you have to listen to language. And you probably know, Tarun, give me a 1 if you've noticed people who just have negative language. They just put themselves in a hole all the time. So that's one of the things I would look for. So I don't know if that helps, but that's where I would put that. Let me see where you at. Right here. Okay. Got a couple of more, then we're going to head off this thing. Just realized bad salespeople is partly due to bad sales managers. Oh, I agree. TJ, 100% on that, man. You get the DJ one for that one. Yeah, because look, you can put 2 salespeople, you can take one salesperson and put them in one company, they won't perform. You put them on their great sales manager on the other company, they'll perform. So I'm 100% with you. So yeah, I love that. Thank you for bringing that up. What advice can you give to a high school student who wants to go into sales and financial or finance? What can I give a high school student who wants to go into sales? Go get a sales job, man. Just see if you like it. See if you like selling value to people. Notice I didn't say go sell stuff to people. I said go sell value to people. So just try it out. See if you like it. I would say that the biggest tip, I always give this one, is your ability to communicate. So any organization in your school, okay, that has something where you can practice speaking or presenting or communicating, take them. And even if you don't wind up in sales or finance, your ability to communicate ideas, remember the delivery system is always going to be key. To me, that is the most valuable. I graduated, I tell people this all the time, I graduated college, my engineering degree with a 2.63, right? Some people say that's a C+, I call it a B- because I'm an optimist, right? And so here I am, I graduated with a C average, right? And I had people in my course, my engineering course, who were graduating with just honors and A's, but I had a job waiting for me when I got out. Why? Because I could talk, right? It's your ability to communicate. Knowing is one thing. Being able to talk about it is another. So communication skills, communication skills, communication skills. Consistency is the key. Nothing else needs to be said about that one. Hussein, what do you got? Thanks, Victor. I've been watching your video since 2019. I learned a lot. I might get accepted as sales engineer. Love sales engineers. What are the main points I should be focusing in on the first month to make a good impression? Hussein, listen to me. As a sales engineer, what you need to do, I'm going to assume that you understand the product. Big tip, if you want to work with salespeople, follow their lead. Don't try to be the smart person in the room, okay? what I would do is I would work with, I learned this early on, man. To be the best sales engineer is you got to really work with the salesperson. The salesperson has invested a lot of time and energy to get the deal to where it's at to bring you in. The last thing you want to do is screw that deal up for them. So what I would do is before we go into a meeting, I would ask the salesperson, all right, what's the objective? What are we doing? What are things you want me to say, not to say, right? And we would have a signal. Like, in other words, when I needed to stop talking, right? Because I would always look at the salesperson when I was talking, and then once in a while I'd look over, and we would do this. We had a tap thing going. You would tap if they wanted you to. So I remember this one lady. I won't mention her name. So she says, Victor, if I put my hand down, my right hand down, and I'm tapping, like she would just do this, like that means stop, like be quiet. And we had these signals. And because I was following their lead. So I think to be a great sales engineer, you have to be a great engineer. You have to work with the people around you. But more importantly, man, you have to be a complement with an E to the salesperson. That would be my number one recommendation. So, all right. Hello, V. Next time, maybe you can take one video to talk about the book you read. It was really useful, and I want to watch it. Which book was this? Tell me what book was that? Is it the Sell or Be Sold? Yeah. What's happening, Brother Vic? Love the knowledge. Thanks. Thank you, Felix, man. Jay Pinder. Ansley, my favorite are What Great Salespeople Do. Gap Selling, good book. Gap Selling, good book, by the way. Beyond Selling Value, another good book. And How to Make Friends and Influence People. Is that the real title? You know which one it is. But yeah, those are great suggestions right there. Great suggestions right there. Salesman pitch convince customer Salesman's pitch convinced customer to the product. Customer liked the product because it's quality product, but haven't purchasing power. So how to win this customer and keep the salesperson motivated? Mohammed, that's a tough one, right? Because sometimes it's like it's the quality, but the purchasing power isn't there, right? So what we would do is we would surround the actual manager. So I'll say it this way. What happened is, let's say you're going into a deal. It's a complex sale. I take it's B2B, right? There's at least 5 decision makers involved, and we would try to target all 5. We knew purchasing was one, but there was always 1 or 2 people that drove the decision. For example, in the technology field, I always knew that a CTO or a CIO had greater influence on the actual decision than, let's say, the CEO or some other CXO. And so the CTO and the CIO, I would work them to justify the higher price, explaining what products and services we were offering. And so when purchasing stepped in and says, hey, we like your product, but we don't like the price. And I would always say, I said, we've already agreed on a price. I said, go back and talk to the CTO, CIO. I'm giving you the short version of this. And they'll explain why this product is priced at this point. And that was it. And so they would always influence purchasing. So we always had a strategy for purchasing. And so the bigger the deal, the more people you surround, you try to minimize purchasing. Because at the end of the day, remember, they're not trying to get the product at the best price. They're trying to solve a solution. The CTO, the CIO doesn't care if it costs 10% more. They're not incentivized or motivated by that. They're incentivized by putting in a system, implementing or integrating something that works. So if you can get them on your side, and you can gang up on purchasing, that's one way of getting them around and keeping your salespeople motivated. So, cool. Okay, I'm gonna start wrapping up soon. Interesting that you mentioned when not facing the role play partner, you perform naturally. I had a conversation with a salesperson on Zoom, and he was using Course software, the Course.ai software. Interesting. What else? I could see him stressing out and words not coming naturally. I find it a bit surprising that the tools that are supposed to guide us to make us nervous. Really? So you actually caught him using. So what Sam is talking about, Course.ai is supposed to help you with your conversations. And I think that's a perfect example of I'm trying to pay attention to you, right, Sam? Well, I'm talking to you, but I'm also trying to read this, and what I'm supposed to say, and it doesn't sound natural. And that's why I say you have to be able to absorb the information and let it come through you so it'll sound naturally. Trying to adjust on the fly too much is probably going to sound very mechanical, which is probably what you saw. That's really interesting, Sam. That's really interesting. Holy bucket. Chad wrote a manifesto here. Let me see. When I am working with a salesperson who may be defensive or uptight in a one-on-one, is to frame questions to allow my reps to speak the answer I want back to me. Love it already, Chad, right? Because you're asking them questions, but you're really guiding them, hoping they'll come to a conclusion that you've already predetermined for them. I love that. This often allows them to tell me what they need to do rather than me always telling them. If the salesperson does not go toward the answer, I'll say something like, well, what about this? Brilliant, brother. Brilliant, man. That's true management right there. Because it's again, if you tell them, that's not helping them because the answer has to come from them. And so it's almost like Plato's rule. If you ever read like Socrates/Plato, and it talks about the answer's always there. You just have to ask the right questions to extract the answer, but the answer is there. So I love that, man. Well put, Chad. Well put. Juka, a bit late, but you're here, man. You're here. Pete says, amen. Love it. Gabriel. Hi, Victor. Sometimes you have to coach a person that seems to be not so receptive or open. Would you give us a piece of advice for that situation? Yeah, I've had those. I've had people who didn't want to take my advice. So I'm assuming that you're the manager, right? And they work for you, right? And so I would always remind them of performance. And so I've told this story before, but I'll tell it one more time. I had a sales guy who basically told me, screw you, Victor. I've been in this business longer than you. I'm not listening to you. Which he'd what? He had been in the business longer than me. And I remember we got in an argument, and I finally said, you know what? Do it your way as long as you give me my number. But if you don't hit the numbers, you and I are going to have a problem. We're going to have a chat. And I think the first quarter he hit his numbers. Second quarter he still hit his numbers, so I really couldn't say much. But after I think a year, he started noticing that other salespeople were passing him up. Right? He used to be like number one or number two, and then people were passing him up. And that brought him around to saying, okay, well, how are you doing it? But it's interesting how when I would bring my salespeople together, I know you're talking one-on-one, but here's another strategy. Bring people in a room, right? Let's say you got 5 salespeople under you. And those 5 salespeople, you have 3 that are just killing it, super successful. And then what I would do is, as I'm going through, I know this person, number 1 is not receptive, but 3, 4, 5 are killing it. 2 is doing average. 3, 4, 5 are killing it. So let number 1 go up or last, whatever it may be. But when you get to 2, 3, 4, or 3, 4, 5 rather, I'm going to start asking them just kind of what Chad said. I said, tell me how you're being successful in penetrating these accounts. Tell me what you're doing. Walk me through the process. And even though I'm looking at that guy, right, I'm also hoping that number 1's going to hear what they're actually doing. And then I'm going to praise that. And that makes them think, maybe I need to start doing that if I want to get the praise. So that's one way of doing it. There's several strategies. That's a really good question, though. But I would use peer pressure. And sometimes, by the way, I'll leave this, Gabriel. One more is that sometimes I realize that people don't want to take your advice because they're so insecure with themselves. They don't think, you don't think they're listening. But if you drop it in there often enough, it finally hits bottom, and that just requires some patience. But I would try the group thing and see if that works. Would love to hear your feedback on that. Mike sought out his prospect, shared the story of needing money for either rent or his kid. He would even work up tears. When in sales, you have to believe in the product, and Mike believed his story. He would offer proof like scares or something or letters. He believed the story. I watched as he approached people. I've seen people like this, man. They're just natural salespeople. I went to the store the other day, the mall. We're looking at clothing, right? And I'm gonna do a whole episode on. I met this guy, 70 years old, right? He was 70 years old. Chuck D. By the way, that's his real name. The D, I forgot what the name stood for, but he just called me Chuck D. 70 years old, and I mean, when you look at somebody and they're talking to you, you go, that's a salesperson. And this guy had several things that you're just sitting there going, that's what sales is all about. And I'm going to talk about it because he was just amazing. I let him know how amazing he was. Did he sell me? He did. Let me see. Somebody says Porsche was the best. Forks for second place. Third gets fired. It went something like that. Okay, I get it. It's almost like, I drove a BMW to work. You drove a Hyundai. Remember the movie Glengarry Glen Ross? Who second place is a set of steak knives or something like that. Hi, Victor. Kindly differentiate sales and marketing in your own perspective. Please elaborate more. Holy buckets, George. Why do you want to throw something like that at me this late in the game? Here's why that's a tough one. So I'm going to do my best. Because what's happening is that you're seeing this blending. I'll use Jeb Blunt's term, blending of sales and marketing. It should be called like smarketing. Because what's happening is that the customers are now, depending on whose report you believe, CB, Forrester, all these others, right? What happens is, George, people are going online now, right? And they're searching online for stuff. And so whose responsibility is that? Well, that's marketing, right? So people are trying to understand, what does the customer journey look like, right? People go online. First of all, there's the trigger event. I need this. They go online. They look at a website. They do some research. They look at videos. They listen to podcasts. They download the white papers. They read the reports. And all that is marketing. Salespeople have nothing to do with that. And so now they're like 80, 90% into the buying cycle, right? And then finally, they reach out. Remember early on at the beginning, I said that's a market qualified lead. So marketing gets that, has a conversation, initial conversation. They go, okay, I think this is a real buyer because he's also downloaded all these things. We can tell from our CRM, tracking the analytics. And then they hand it over to sales. That's what you see a lot today. And in sales today, they do the face-to-face, which is really video to video, and they close the deal. And so that's kind of how the line has been split. But if you notice what's happening now because of this pandemic, this is why it's a tough question to answer now, is that the outside people are no longer outside people, they're inside people. They're doing what the inside salespeople are doing. But again, keep in mind that what's driving them to the client or to the company in many cases is marketing. And so what's the difference? I think marketing is trying to generate the perception, the brand, the messaging in the market to try to garner the attention, right? The salespeople take it the last step. But again, there's a lot of inside salespeople who, because of marketing, are able to close deals much quicker because of marketing. So marketing for the first time, I think has, in my career, marketing used to be something you just thought about on the side. Yeah, we got to do it. We don't know if it's really valuable. Remember that John Wanamaker line? 50% of my marketing works. I just don't know which 50, right? And that was the joke because nobody knew how to quantify sales through marketing. Well, today you can quantify sales through marketing through analytics, that you get off your system, and you can see that people are visiting different websites, grabbing different information, and it's marketing that's shaping that customer preference. So I don't know if I helped you, but it's such a big question, but it's a great question though. It's a great question. Hussein, another question. The sales manager asked me how to develop the sales as we are growing our company. What things will you do to maximize sales with big companies around us? Is that the question he's asking? Another question, the sales manager asked me how to develop the sales as we are growing the company. What things will you do to maximize the sales with the big companies around us? I think I know what you're asking. I think when you first start out in sales, one of the things that a manager is going to ask you is, we're going to go, well, here, let me take it this way. You go into a company for the first time. Manager's thinking, I got to hit a number to my manager, right? So he's reporting to a VP or a director, right? So he's got a number to hit. He brings you on board, Hussein, right? And he's saying, Hussein, how are you going to grow the business? And what he wants from you is a 3-month or 6-month plan on how you're going to grow the business. He wants a business plan for you. How are you going to grow sales? And what he's looking for, or she's looking for, is for you to say something like this. All right, here's the target market we're going after. Here are the prime customers. Here's what they look like. Here's the strategy. Here's the playbooks, right? Remember the whole thing? The prospecting, right? Then figure out the playbook. I'm going to learn the products, get that down. Make sure we have the right presentation, also known as the voice of the customer messaging, talking to the customer. And then this is the strategy. This is what we're going to do. And in terms of activities on the prospecting side, what I'm going to do is create a playbook. We're going to contact customers, 5 times every 7 weeks, whatever it may be. We're going to do voicemail. They're going to do an email, send them a video, blah, blah, blah. They want that. That's what they're looking for. So I don't know if I'm helping you there, but that's how I would answer that question. I said, I would put a plan together, figure out who's my target market. As I've talked about in the past, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 1, ideal clients. Tier 2, kind of my clients. Tier 3, maybe on the outside, adjacent markets that I can get. And then they're going to want to know, how are you going to approach tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and how are you going to make the number? At the end of the day, here's what he wants, or she wants. You have a $2 million quota. How are you going to get there? That's what they want. They want a roadmap, man. If you can give them a roadmap, then you're good. Brian, I read SOBs over half a dozen times. I still go back to it from time to time when I feel I need to go motivation. My man. All right. 100% correct on low information thinkers being influenced by hard sell sales time. Yeah. And I feel bad because I think that's what gives sales a bad name. That's what it is. Hey, Vic, can you please recommend a book that will improve a sales team's negotiating and closing skills? Why don't you look at Jeb Blunt's recent book that came out 6 months ago called Inked, like you inked the deal, INKED. Great book. I think that's a good one. Go with that one. Try that one. Let me know what you think, Ugo. And maybe I'll do a review on that book. I think it might be a good one. Appreciate it. Yes. Nail on the head. Other than fear, what other methods would be more effective in driving decision in today's marketplace? Greed, needs, etc. Perhaps any other recommendations? Sometimes, the opposite of fear is obviously aspiration, right? Aspiration being, where do you want to be? Because that's another way of driving, it's kind of a subtle fear, but it's the, that FOMO, the fear of missing out, FOMO, in case you don't know what I'm talking about, fear of missing out, FOMO, right? And that might be a way of generating. That's a different type of fear. I'm going to create that. That's an aspirational fear. Aspirational fear being that you want to say, hey, if you want to be here in 5 years, based on our conversation, you want to be here in 5 years, well, how are you going to get there if you don't have these things in place? So that's a different type of fear. That's more like, these are your aspirations. This is what you're trying to get to. Well, how are you going to do it? And this is where you can start pushing the customer back on their mental heels. And, they start, like Chad is saying, asking the right questions to pull stuff out of your own salespeople. Same applies here. You basically ask these questions to the customer. Says, well, how are you going to get there? We all heard the statement, what got you here won't get you there. You need a different skill set, a different tool set, a different mindset, right, to get to the next level. So I would say, how are you going to get to the next level if you don't make these changes? If you keep doing the same thing definition of insanity, over and over again, you're going to get the same results. So maybe that would be an approach, Rod. What do you think of that? Let me know what you think of that. A sales manager's shoot coach more and manage less, I think. A sales manager shoots it sounds like you say, Jorgen, it sounds like you're saying shoot the coach. A sales manager shoot coaches more and manage less, I think. Give me that one again, Jorgen. I'm lost on that one, man. I'm lost on that one. Tony Robbins, quote, the ability to communicate will be the ability to get to the top. Deja vu, Vic, bright man. Oh, I mean, that's something that's been around for years. People have been saying it for decades, if not, hundreds of years already. It's like, your ability to communicate. This goes back to the Greeks. I mean, back then, what is the word I'm looking for? The style of rhetoric, the ability to speak, to communicate, to articulate ideas, a Marcus Aurelius style, that type of thing. Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, the ability to talk, communicate. That was something that was highly valued. You were considered erudite, intelligent, superior if you know how to really think. And, so we've lost some of that, but I think communication has always been around as the leverage point to grow. So, yeah. Brian Fraud, what advice would you have for an introvert with future sales hopes? A lot. I tend to become extroverted when I get comfortable in a situation, but not sure how to get in the arena. Food distribution background. One of the best salespeople that I ever knew, and I don't mind saying his name because he's a great guy. He's probably still selling. David Shoemaker, that's his name. If he's listening to this, David, what's up? I remember working with him, and I remember traveling with this guy. And this guy was he wasn't an introvert like, not eye contact. I mean, not like that. But, he was just so soft-spoken. He was quiet. He wasn't loud. He wasn't brash. He just totally broke the mold, Brian. Totally broke the mold. But yet he would kill the sales. And I remember we were in Puerto Rico, and I asked one of the owners, it was a cable company, I said, what is it about this guy that, that you like? Because you buy stuff from him. He says, Victor, he comes in here, and he's not trying to sell us. He just talks to us. He tells us what's due, lets us think about it, and he's always in touch. He's just always connecting. So the thing is, I think you could use that to your advantage. And by the way, we all get comfortable when we're talking about something we like. So maybe there's just like a slight hump, Brian, that once you get comfortable with talking to people about that industry, and you'll fall into your own flow. And I'll highlight the last thing. You don't have to believe me. Who's the guy? I think it's Adam Grant. I'm going off memory here. Adam Grant came up with the word ambivert. An ambivert, he said, when they looked at, I'm giving you the short version of this, when they looked at salespeople, they looked at introverts and extrovert, and what they found is that the best salespeople were right in the middle. They were ambiverts. You know, what does that mean to you is you don't have to be an extrovert. You just have to kind of move to the middle. That's it. And if you're an extrovert, you have to move to the middle and just shut up more. And so keep in mind that where an introvert fails, if I can put it that way, is that, you know, they're not as communicative. They don't ask a lot of questions. They're great listeners. They're very empathetic, right? Where a extrovert fails is that they talk too much and they don't listen. Now blend those two, ask questions and be empathetic, and you can be a great salesperson, Brian. So that's not, dude, I'm telling you, you're good with that, man. You can make it happen. Tarun says, thank you right back, man. Hussein, thank you, man. I hope that helps. When to kick a customer or kick the salespeople? When to kick the customer? Dude, never kick either one, George. Just don't do it, man. Don't do it. Seller Be Sold, Grant Cardone. Go to his webpage and look him up. It's a great book. I was like, it's going to sound so wrong, but I was taken aback at how good that book was. It was very, you know, I'm a Zig Ziglar fan, as you guys know, but it was very like Ziglar-esque with content and motivation. I really enjoyed that book a lot, man. Thanks for the answer, man. Most of the time, bosses and managers force salespeople to sell the way they do as salespeople. How do you address that? You can't sell the way somebody else sells. I think that's, you know, again, that's the curse of knowledge. People know, look, just sell like this. But it's like Brian. Brian's an introvert. He believes he's an introvert. He's probably more like an ambivert, somewhere in the middle. And if I try to get him to sell like an extrovert, he's going to fail. One, it's not going to be comfortable. Two, he's not going to feel good about it. Three, he's going to reject the whole process and just quit. And so we got to find out, how do you remember that Bruce Lee line? Absorb what is useful, discard what is not, then add what is uniquely yours. And that's what you have to do. Push it through naturally so it comes out like yours. Brian, Sales Velocity. Bam, if you haven't checked it out, you should, man. A lot of great resources there. We're adding something called fast classes. I think we've put 3 of them up there. We're going to add 2 more over the next week or so. And we're just going to add these short classes that just going to give you some quick hits. So check it out. It's not that expensive. Why not? Thank you guys, man. I appreciate the push on that. It's a really a great, I mean, right now you can't find an academy of this size for this price. And it should be higher, but it is what it is. Gabriel says, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate the question on that. That was a good question, actually. No question. Just wanted to say thanks for sharing your pearls of wisdom. Thank you. Appreciate that. Catherine Flores. Hi, Victor. What would be the best time to follow up with a client? The numbers are all over the place, Catherine. You know, I like it. Jeb Blunt does this exercise where he has people in his... by the way, Jeb Blunt, who wrote the recent book, Virtual Selling, you can also find him at salesgravy.com. He was talking about in his book about how he does this exercise with his students in his course where, you know, I guess somewhere in the class, he's got a book called Fanatical Prospecting. Check it out, Fanatical Prospecting, where he basically, as part of the course, the workshop, he basically tells everybody, stop, put everything down, get your phones out, we're gonna dial for dollars, right? And the pushback, as he tells the story, is always, yeah, people are saying, well, now's not a good time to call. I never get the person, so forth and so on. And he lets them make calls for like a half hour or something. And the results are just stunning because people come back going, I didn't think they would answer. I didn't think they would be there. So you can second guess all this you want. But I think that's, you know, Catherine, that's my best answer. I think personally, early morning, by early morning, I mean, to me, the 9 to 11 window is always a good window, maybe even earlier, 8 to 11 window. And then, you know, the 3 to 5 window is always good as well. So that's it. I mean, again, if you Google this, you'll see the numbers are everywhere in which people should call. And Brian just says immediately and often. I mean, yeah, it's just call. That's right, Gator, Flo, just follow. You guys got it. Got to run, Victor. Thank you again. I got to cut this short off. So, Victor, what is the number one trait you admire in great salespeople? What is the number? What a great question, Mike. Jeeper, Mike, hit me with a heavy question like that. What is the number one trait you admire in great salespeople? I think when they actually care about the end result. Do you know what I mean? It's like something you admire that because it's like they're really trying to give their customer the product they know that can help them. And so I don't know what you call that. It's when I admire salespeople who will just say, no, I'm not going to sell you this. It's not going to work for you. Even if you put it in, it might help you a little bit, but it's not what you want. Let me tell you what you do want. You want this. And I love that attitude. People call it serving. I don't like that phrase. Don't like that phrase. You serve your customer. I don't like that, Mike. I like to think is that, look, I'm trying to help you find the value you need to help your business grow. Because if you gain, I gain, right? I give you something of value, and then I receive value. As I always say, the value for value equation. And so I like people who have a value for value mindset. How's that? It's a great question. I've never had that question. It's a great question, Mike. Thank you for asking me. That was a tough one. Thank you for putting me on the spot. Thank you. Anyway, okay, you guys got to go. Anyway, I'm going to start wrapping this up because I really got to get out of here. Felipe says, hola, Victor, just made it. Well, Felipe, I'm out of here. Watch it on the replay. And so let me give you as I always say, some final thoughts. So on the final thoughts, again, there's different ways of coaching salespeople who are struggling or having problems. So again, go through the whole model I just gave you. Start with their prospecting. How are they doing? What's their outreach program? What's their playbook look like? What's their cadence? How are they working with the CM? What are the activities that they're doing? Next, figure out, do they know their product? This is important. And if you don't have the training, go talk to the people who built the product. And if you don't have access to engineers or let's say anybody else, go talk to clients who've bought it. They'll tell you everything you need to know about product. At the end of the day, it's your responsibility to know your product so well that you're good. So well that you can do number 3, which is the pitch. The pitch has to be natural. As we've talked about already, if it comes across mechanical, people will notice it. So just keep that in mind. Before I forget, don't forget to subscribe. Like or share if you really dig these videos, and we'll keep doing more of these. By the way, can you believe we're on episode number 62? Some of you have been here since number 1, so we're going for 100 by the end of the year. And then after that, the pricing and everything should flow naturally. Again, if you got the right clients, you know how to position the product in your pitch, then the pricing shouldn't be that difficult. I'm not saying you're not going to have pushback, but it shouldn't be that difficult. Number 5 was up here. This right here between your ears, this is where it all happens. This is where the magic happens in selling. If this is not right, nothing else will work. So don't be afraid to, remember, really talk to clients about what you're offering. And if you believe in the value for value, getting back to what Mike asked me, if you believe that you're offering value, giving value, then you should be loving sales. I mean, if you know what I mean? When you're helping, you're just loving sales. On that note, I am out of here. This is Victor Antonio. Sales After Dark, always reminding you, selling ain't hard when you know how.